Savannah burns, the night trembling under the roar of cannons and the echo of desperate cries. One message arrives that chills the Frasers to their core. Send for the devil. A choice must be made, and Jamie Fraser knows that every second now carries the weight of life and death, not just for soldiers on the battlefield, but for the family he has fought centuries to protect. In a world where loyalty, love, and survival collide, the real enemy may not wear a uniform, and the devil they call could demand a price no one is ready to pay. The night was alive with smoke and tension. The British lines pressed harder, their cannons shaking the earth beneath Jamie's boots, the ground trembling as if warning him of the storm to come. He had fought battles before, but tonight, each heartbeat was heavier than the last. Inside the lodge, shadows flickered over worn faces, men whose trust and secrecy had been tested through blood and betrayal. Jamie's eyes, dark and piercing, scanned the room. Every friend, every ally carried his history and his guilt. A voice from the past whispered through his thoughts, reminding him of promises broken and the demons that never slept. Each decision tonight could destroy them all. Across the river, Brianna crouched behind a crumbling wall, clutching a letter from Roger. Her hands trembled, the dirt on her skin mixing with tears that refused to fall quietly. She had always known courage, but now fear gnawed at her like a living thing. Roger fought on the other side of the siege, red coat marking him as an enemy to her cause, though no force could sever the bond of their love. Every shot fired across the battlefield was a reminder that war could steal everything, even the future they fought to preserve. If one of them fell tonight, their son Jimmy might never know the safety of family, the warmth of home, or the strength of love that had endured centuries. In the makeshift hospital tent, Claire worked tirelessly, her hands stained with blood, her mind racing through wounds and whispered prayers. The air reeked of gunpowder, fear, and sickness, and yet nothing in her long life, across time and continents, had prepared her for the message she now carried. Send for the devil. Who is it? A spy, a mercenary, a force older than reason itself? Claire felt a storm rising inside her, knowing that whatever answer came would tip the scales of life and death in ways she could not yet calculate. Jamie stepped from the lodge, the night air cold against his face, muscles tense, mind filled with images of Claire, Brianna, and Roger. The devil could already be among them, disguised as a friend, or as a weapon of ultimate betrayal. Every step toward the river carried the weight of impossible choices, a burden he had borne across centuries. The cannon fire thundered like judgment, each boom a reminder of lives at stake and hearts vulnerable to destruction. The night seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting, as if the earth itself held its breath. Meanwhile, Brianna and Roger moved through their own battles, unaware of the summoning that could change everything. Brianna loaded her rifle with trembling hands, each bullet carrying the risk of striking the one she loved most. Roger's mind was torn, every command from his superiors feeling like betrayal, even as he kept his aim steady. The siege closed in, the city's fate, and perhaps the family's, hanging on a thread thinner than courage or loyalty could measure. At the riverbank, a shadow waited, cloaked and silent. When Jamie finally saw him, his breath caught. Elias Crow stepped forward, a man whispered about in both British and Patriot lines, a mercenary with a reputation built from blood. His eyes held the weight of every death he had delivered, and his voice promised power and destruction. Crow offered aid, but the cost was clear. One life in exchange for salvation, a choice so cruel it would carve the souls of those who survived. Jamie's hand hovered near his weapon, heart racing, mind calculating the impossible. Could he bargain with a force that demanded everything he held dear? Claire arrived at the river as dawn threatened the edges of the night. The river moved like a silent witness to human desperation, indifferent to the storms of war and time. Her eyes met Jamie's, filled with unspoken fear and fierce determination. Behind them, Brianna moved closer through the mist, while Roger's steps echoed softly in the underbrush. The family's fates converged at this point, the devil summoned, and the world teetered on the edge of a choice no one could take lightly. Crow's terms were brutal, one life to balance the scales. And in his shadowed gaze, the Frasers glimpsed the true cost of desperation. The siege raged, yet the real battle was not for land, flags, or victory. It was for the life of one child, one woman, one family stretched across time and war. Every breath, every heartbeat, carried them closer to the moment where one choice would define who lived, who died, and who would bear the weight of the devil's bargain. Jamie clenched his fists, torn between duty and love, the stones of fate whispering around them, reminding them that the cost of salvation was always higher than expected. The first light of dawn barely touched the horizon, painting the river in pale, trembling gold, but the chill of fear remained thick. Jamie's mind raced, every instinct screaming that Crow was no ordinary man. He had fought armies, faced impossible odds, but nothing prepared him for the weight of a choice that could claim the life of his daughter, or worse, the threads of time themselves. Each second stretched into eternity, the drums of war echoing across the city, blending with the rapid pounding of his own heart. Every shadow seemed to move with intent, every whisper of wind carrying the threat of death. Brianna moved like a shadow herself, dirt smudging her face, rifle held steady though her hands shook. She had never felt so small, yet never so determined. Every step brought her closer to the riverbank, to the man who held her father's life in his hands, to the moment where courage had to outweigh fear. Roger followed, heart thundering beneath the red coat he had chosen to wear, torn between duty and love. He had stepped onto the battlefield believing in protection, but now protection meant risking everything he valued most. Each footstep felt like trespassing on fate, but retreat was no longer an option. Crow's eyes glimmered with a cruel calculation. He did not rush, did not panic. Time itself seemed to slow as he evaluated the family before him, his silence more threatening than any cannon. Jamie stepped forward, shielding Claire instinctively, his hands taut, voice low and steady, even as the fire of desperation burned in his chest. Claire met his gaze, her healer's mind racing for solutions, for ways to outthink a man whose very presence carried death. Every option had been considered, every escape route mapped, yet all roads led back to the same impossibility. One life for many. The air was alive with tension, the mist curling like fingers around the riverbank, hiding dangers, masking intentions. Jamie's thoughts flickered to past battles, to times when choices had ended lives, altered destinies. But nothing, had ever demanded this level of sacrifice, this clarity of horror. Crow stepped closer, blade gleaming faintly in the morning light, a silent reminder that promises of salvation came only through suffering. One life, he had said. One life to tip the scales. And that life, Jamie knew, was the one who mattered most. Brianna froze as realization hit. Crow wanted her. Not Jamie. Not Claire. Her pulse raced, yet clarity sharpened her focus. She lowered the rifle slightly, understanding the cruel truth. Her survival, or her death, would decide the course of more than just the battle raging around them. Roger's hand hovered over his own weapon, fear and resolve clashing as he saw the same understanding dawn in Brianna's eyes. She would not wait to be chosen. She would face the devil on her own terms. Claire's voice rang out, firm and commanding, cutting through the thickening tension. She offered herself, stepping into the light, ready to claim her life if it meant saving Brianna. Jamie's chest tightened as he grabbed her arm, whispering words of protest, but Claire would not be dissuaded. The threads of time, the fragile bonds of their family, demanded sacrifice, and she would bear it if needed. Crow's smile flickered, thin, cruel, but intrigued. He measured her resolve against the family's desperation, knowing that in the balance of life and death, the choices of the brave always came with consequences. Explosions shook the riverbank, sending dirt and smoke spiraling into the air, but the Frasers barely noticed. Jamie's mind was a storm of strategy and fear, Claire's heart a furnace of determination, Brianna's courage like steel forged in fire. Crow circled, predator-like, waiting for hesitation, for weakness. Each moment stretched, a breathless dance on the edge of disaster. One wrong move, one misjudged action, and the cost would be immediate, irreversible. Then, in a heartbeat, Brianna stepped forward, lowering her rifle completely, her voice steady despite the storm of terror inside her. "It's me," she said quietly. "I will pay the price." Roger instinctively stepped beside her, ready to shield her, yet knowing that the choice was already hers to make. Jamie's heart tore in half, but he could see the truth in her eyes. Fear had not broken her, it had sharpened her will. Claire reached out, touching her daughter's shoulder, lending silent strength. And for the first time, Jamie allowed himself to hope that courage might prevail where fear would have failed. Crow tilted his head, considering Brianna, the youngest thread in a tapestry stretched across centuries, the future held within her very blood. "Brave," he murmured, voice low and deadly, "but bravery alone cannot alter the scales." He raised his blade slightly, signaling that time had run thin. The drums of war echoed louder, the city's fate and the family's hanging together, balanced on this single impossible choice. Jamie's hand hovered near his pistol, Claire's fingers tightened around the knife in her sleeve, and Brianna met Crow's gaze without flinching. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every breath a gamble, and yet the bond of family and love shone brighter than any fear. Then, with a final, decisive step, Brianna moved forward, drawing every ounce of courage into her stance. Roger placed a hand lightly on her back, grounding her, whispering strength even as the world seemed to collapse around them. Crow's eyes gleamed with something ancient, knowing, and he lowered his weapon slightly, as if testing the limits of human resolve. Jamie stepped forward, shielding Claire instinctively, yet every fiber of his being was anchored to his daughter's courage. The devil had been summoned, but the Frasers would not bend. Not today. Not without the fiercest fight love and loyalty could muster. The riverbank was still for a heartbeat, holding its breath, waiting to see who would survive, who would fall, and who would pay the ultimate price. And as dawn broke fully, painting the world in light and shadow, one truth was clear. Survival was not about strength alone, but the unbreakable bonds forged across time, battles, and blood. Every second counted, and the real war, the one for family, for love, for the threads of time, was just beginning.